Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this live Google Hangout between myself, Lisa Duffy, with lisaduffy.com, and a friend of mine out on the West Coast, Rose Sweet. I'm going to let Rose tell you a lot more about herself in just a moment, but she is an author, speaker, writer, and all-around advocate for helping divorced Catholics heal. So I'm really glad that you could join us, and you might notice below the video window there is a little box where you can put in comments or questions. Towards the end of this video discussion, we'll take some questions. We'll take as many as we can. So if you have them, go ahead and post them while we're discussing these changes, and know that we'll get to as many of them as we can toward the end, like the last 15 minutes of the conversation. So with that, I would like to just introduce myself briefly. If you have not heard of me before, my name is Lisa Duffy, again with lisaduffy.com. I am an author. I've written 2 books, Divorced Catholic Now What, and then most recently, The Catholic Guide to Dating After Divorce. And I really do those things as well as blogging for the Catholic Match Institute and for Pathos.com on their Catholic channel. I do it all because, just like Rose, I'm deeply interested in helping Catholics heal from divorce. I've been through one before, and although it was many years ago, it's something that was such a critical incident in my life. It's always going to be a part of me, and I feel like I have a lot to share with those who are suffering. So that's a little bit about me. Rose, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, first of all, Lisa, thank you for having me here. I love that you're on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast. And I think between the two of us, we can bring a lot of hope and love and maternal instinct even to those who are just beaten down or terrified or even angry about divorce and what's going on in their lives. And as we're going to talk about today in the church. And I too have been through divorce, but more than one. And when I was young, I really determined I knew what would make me happy was a husband, home, and kids. And I set out trying to get that any way I could, and I made a huge mess of my life. And I kept asking God to bless everything that I did, but I never stopped to say, what is it maybe you want, Lord? So finally, when I caused myself enough pain and other people too, I had a major conversion experience, and I said, okay, Lord, take me and do with me what you will. And he's faithful to that. That's all he needs. He needs that little open door, and then he'll rush in and really change the heart. And you know, when we get something wonderful like a new makeup or something, a new car or something, we can't help but run out and tell everybody, you guys, this is great, it's awesome, you should get one, or you should have this. And I think, Lisa, you and I both do that. We love the healing and the hope that we got through our faith after divorce. We can't keep it inside. We have to share it as best we can with those who are coming alongside. And you and I have been given a gift. And our mission is to give it to others as best we can. And I also have written books. I travel around the country and speak. And you did a beautiful video series to be in parishes to help divorced and separated Catholics. I did another one. So we're kind of sisters in this, as it were. And I'm really happy to be here today to help answer questions or to offer that hope that people are looking for.
Excellent. That's wonderful. And you know, as far as having that gift, I like to tell people who have been divorced that they too have that gift and they need to share it with others. And I always kind of liken it to a cancer survivor speaking with a cancer patient. I have been privy to a conversation like that before, and it's amazing to watch because the cancer survivor knows exactly what kind of pain and what kind of struggles that cancer patient is going through. And they can see into the future and offer, you know, hope based on their own journey with cancer. And I really kind of feel like it's very much the same thing. You know, the pain of divorce can be like an interior cancer. It's only emotional. It's not physical, although sometimes it does feel very physical. So I think that's great. I'm glad that we're both in it, and we certainly know that there's a need for it. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah, there is a need, and I don't think either one of us are going to be out of business anytime soon. That's the sad thing. And I wanted to affirm as well, I also rely on medical imagery in helping explain some of what goes on in divorce. You know, we're mental and emotional and spiritual, invisible parts of our being, but the physical part is very similar to that. And one of the things I thought is that we who've been through divorce, yes, we can speak to this in a way that nobody else can. And yet, like wise and holy priests or other people who may not have experienced divorce certainly can also help us in our healing, just like a cancer doctor who never had cancer himself. So the best healing is to get the expert doctor maybe who hasn't been through it, and then the person who has really been through it. And then you're really going to get a lot of hope and help there.
That's a fantastic point, and actually kind of segues quite nicely into what we want to talk about today, which is all these changes that have come out early last week that the Pope made, Pope Francis, and we want to, kind of dig into some of that. Now, this is definitely a conversation that could take place over many Google Hangouts. We could talk about it for hours. And we may, in fact, do other ones because as we go forth, and Rose, you and I pay a lot of attention to what the canon lawyers are saying about this. It's a process of unfolding. So, there's bound to be new developments in the future that we might talk about. But for today, I think that you and I have some basic points that we would like to talk about in this first week of dealing with these announcements. So why don't you go ahead and introduce your point?
Well, my main point is I notice with the flurry of emotion and adrenaline, this big announcement from the Pope, way farther in advance than anybody hoped. We thought they would be discussing this at the Synod in Rome in October, but here he comes, woo, woo, woo. And I remember I got a call at 5 o'clock in the morning here on the West Coast from, media outlets on the East Coast wanting to talk about this. And I jumped out of bed. My adrenaline was going, okay, here we go. What has the Pope said? What does it all mean? And I found it easy to get, I also got caught up into, oh, what's going on? What's going to happen? And I had to calm myself down and say, okay, hang on, Rose. Things like this have happened before, certainly over centuries. And as you said, Lisa, we have to calm down and give it time and have a civil discussion, but don't let the high energy and the high emotional level hijack us. We tend in this culture to be so consumed with fear. We don't even realize all the little fears that we have during the day that are, attacking us. So I realized as this began to unfold, and I was involved in it, and you were involved, that out of a mess, out of problems, out of pain and error and sinfulness, our Lord is always there to bring something beautiful and true and good out of it.
Absolutely.
And I think even if the Pope makes the worst mistake in the world, which we know so far he is not, but if he did, that God is still in charge. He's here, he's watching, and he has said the gates of hell will not prevail against the church, his bride. And while it'll be scary and difficult, he promises to bring great good out of any mess that we human persons create. And the first thing I think of is our own divorces, our life. I contributed greatly to my divorce situation. I didn't want to admit it, but when I was humble enough to look at it and open to the Lord, to healing, he brought beautiful, powerful stuff out of my garbage. And, you and I both have a national, international now divorce apostolate to people all over the world. That's pretty darn powerful. And that didn't come by either you or me trying. You and I both opened up and said, okay, take what we have and please make something big and beautiful out of it. The next thing that I always think about is look at the crucifix. Out of the greatest evil that man ever attempted, killing God, came the greatest good, our salvation. Heaven, the gates of heaven opened up. So that's what I wanted to remind anybody who's participating today, that yes, it's normal and natural to have fears and concerns, but not to the point of anxiety or anger or depression, because God is still God, and he promises to bring great good out of everything if we will only cooperate with him. So I'm cooperating, I know you are, and I hope everybody else will too.
That's great. And it's a great preface to these changes, because the bottom line is, you know, we know, and I might take a moment to kind of define what the misconceptions are and what really the changes were that were stated. But it's very easy to criticize when something looks a certain way. The truth is, we have to, you and I have to kind of follow the canon lawyer's lead as they unpack this. It's an unfolding process, because we do have to see how it affects the bishops and you know, how it's going to affect everyone. So I think that there are a lot of good things that are going to happen that I'll touch upon. I also think that we just need to wait and see how it all plays out. Wouldn't you agree?
I do agree. We have to be vigilant and alert, but it's not over yet. So we have to stay open.
Right. And you know, in that very first report on Tuesday, which was, you know, these changes were announced on the Blessed Mother's birthday, which is really wonderful. I thought that was kind of neat. But in that first report that I read from the Vatican, it stated at the very bottom that the Pope's motivation for making these changes was, I'm going to tell you what it is in Latin because it says it right here. It is salus animarum, which is the salvation of souls. And isn't that why you and I do anything? Anyway, it's not really a comfortable thing to constantly have the painful memories of our divorces, you know, fresh all the time. So I believe that, you know, we're doing the same thing that the Pope is, and I'm not putting us on his level in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying, I get it. I understand that statement, because I wouldn't be doing this if I weren't concerned for the welfare of other people's souls. And I 100% believe that that is the motivation behind these changes.
I agree with that. And although we can't put ourselves on his level, we certainly can say that we are sharing in his mission together with him.
Yes.
And, you know, I think that's beautiful. I know when people come to me and their focus is on their ex-spouse and what about the kids and I'm going to lose the house and the money and roll. And we have to be present to that. And we have to tend to that. But ultimately, my goal, and I know yours is too, is to lead them through that somewhere higher to let's go back to the basics. Who are you? Why are you here? Who really loves you? Who will never leave you or forsake you? And to lead them from the divorce back into the arms of Christ, really. And it's that's where the salvation of souls part comes in.
Yes, and you know, well, it's kind of touching on my point, but I don't want to launch into that just yet. I think, to speak to what you just said, one of my big issues, you know, the whole reason why we have divorced and civilly remarried Catholics in this boat anyway, is because I think there's such a tendency after you've gone through a divorce to kind of look for happiness in the moment instead of focusing on happiness in eternity. And when you see the huge difference between those two choices, it makes all the difference in the choices that you make. So if I just want to be happy in the moment, it's easy to jump into a new relationship and try and make it work, even though I'm not really ready. But if you're looking at how am I going to get to heaven? That's my ultimate home. I'm going to be happy for eternity with Christ. I mean, that really makes you reflect on the decisions you have before you and the choices that you're going to make. So, yeah, go ahead.
That's absolutely core to this whole thing, and it made me think of when we were in driver's training those many years ago. That the instructor said, the natural tendency when you first get in the car is to look at the hood of your car. You're just like myopic, you know. But he says, look up and look out ahead of you. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. We're so panicked and so scared. We're just looking right in front of us, and we're going to crash and burn if we don't lift our head up and look out. You know,
yes.
Look toward eternity.
Yeah, very well said.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just wanted everybody to see that I have created this flyer. It may be backwards for you, I don't know.
No, it looks good to me.
Okay, good. So this flyer is something that I have available on my website under free downloads. And I created it for a talk that I gave at my parish this last Sunday regarding these changes. But it basically lists the misconceptions and then the truth about what was really talked about. So I'm just going to read a couple of them. And one is that a misconception that is reported is that the doctrine on marriage and indissolubility has been altered or relaxed. And has that happened, Rose?
Absolutely not. Marriage law has not been changed one iota.
Right. They're policy changes. It's the way that it's the procedures, and that really has nothing to do with church teaching. Annulments, all annulments are now free. That is also false. The Pope has asked dioceses to make it as free as possible. And I think you were on CNN that day, Rose, and weren't they saying that all of them are free?
Yeah, but the Pope in the original the original document, he says if there's small administrative fees that are necessary, those are still to be charged. But as you know, canon law already before his announcement allowed for dioceses to waive or reduce fees already. But he's saying let's everybody do that, because apparently there was in other countries some big abuses on that.
Oh, wow. Well, another one is that all annulments must be completed in 45 days. Wow. Not seeing that happen, but.
No, the 45 days is only attached to this new area of cases which are so slam dunk, so open and shut, so obviously and so well supported that they don't need to be standing in the line of all the other slow lumbering cases that do require that year to a year and a half. And I think about you and I travel a lot. Every time I go through airport security, I would love to go in the fast track lane. Well, I do now because I went and got fingerprinted and I paid a fee and I've been cleared. But that's the thing, not all cases are that easy. They can't be cleared quickly. The ones that can, though, let's move them into the fast track and get them through in 45 days. But that's a very small number of cases, I'm imagining, just in my experience. Most of them require the long time of analysis, and that hasn't changed.
Right. And it's also very necessary. This marriage is a very personal thing, and so it requires a very personal scrutiny. And you can't do that in 45 days. It's just, there's no way. So that does only apply to the fast track.
Well, and let's give an example of that. This is what and this is exaggerated, but these come through. She was 18, still living at home and pregnant from her boyfriend. He didn't want to marry her, but he got pressured. The parents pressured both of them to get married, and he was a drug addict, right? It fell apart, and she had the baby. Maybe they got pregnant and had another baby, but in 3 years, it's over, right?
Right.
It's pretty obvious to the average uneducated person that that's not how God intended marriage. And when those issues can be proven quickly and accurately, then it needs to go in the fast track lane.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good thing. It clears the way for some of these longer term cases to, have some attention. So
Right.
I think that's a good thing. Some of the changes that have taken place are that the bishops are now, well, let's start even before that. The decision in the second instance has been eliminated. Not the court of second instance, because there will still be appeals. But basically, like from personal example, I began the annulment process, and probably, I think, about a year and a half into it, I received the decision in the first instance, and that was the tribunal had come to a decision, but they still had to send it to the archdiocese for a review and a supportive decision or a disagreement. That is the decision in the second instance, and that in particular is what they are saying, hey, we don't need that anymore. We're going to give the authority to the bishop in the first instance to make the decision. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I know, again, this is just another small step toward helping the process be more efficient. Of course, there's always a benefit to have a second set of eyes, another tribunal to come and look at a decision and ratify it or not. But apparently the Pope at this point feels that that isn't as necessary as just the basic process itself. And I know in our area, if our court of second instance, sometimes it's as short as 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. In other places, it takes a couple months. So we've got a few weeks to a few months now shaved off the 1 to 2 year process. It's a good beginning, but it's hardly a gigantic change. It's hardly the 45-day fast track for everybody.
I agree. And I think that, well, that day, a friend of mine messaged me on Facebook and told me that her civil divorce case was almost 3 years long. She had 2 children, and it was just agonizing and grueling. And also, it broke her bank. And when it was all over, she said she didn't have the emotional stamina nor the funds really to go through the annulment process, but I think it was more that emotional stamina. She just couldn't fathom having to revisit it all again. But she said that because of Pope Francis's announcement, she was definitely willing to start taking a look and reconsidering going through the annulment process, because if it was more efficient and a shorter wait, that would make it easier on her. And I welcome that kind of change. I think that that's what, this is kind of getting to my point, which is I think there's a great deal of mercy being extended. And I just want to bring up, I think it was maybe 6 months after the Pope Francis became Pope, he did an interview that was really, really just criticized. But he did an interview with some Italian journalist. And in that interview, he said what is so key for me. And he said that we are all, as baptized Catholics, called to be workers in the field after the battle. And we are called to find the wounded and bring them back to the hospital, which is the church. And that's what this is all about. I mean, in my book, that's, the bottom line. Is he wants souls. He wants souls to come back to the church, and he's just trying to make it, he's trying to pave the way, open the gates, remove the obstacles, call it whatever you want. But that's why I'm on board with this, because I know so many people, really good people, who are estranged from the church and would like to come back, but they don't. And a lot of it has to do with the annulment process. So I believe that what the Pope has been doing on many fronts is extending this mercy and removing obstacles that keep people away from the church. How do you feel about that?
I could not agree more. And, I think when you were talking, I was thinking of that scene in Gone with the Wind where it shows the battlefield where Scarlett is out there trying to help the people. They're all laid out in the streets, right? And then the camera pans back, and as far as you can see, their bodies lying everywhere. And it's like,
Yeah.
holy moly, that's what you and I are dealing with.
Yes.
And my concern is, okay, this is a good thing, but now let's say the average person goes down to their parish and they're all excited. Okay, I'm ready to do this. I hear it's a new process, and they go down and they run into somebody at their parish who is a paper pusher or a bureaucratic mindset, and they're met with coldness or rejection or rubber stampism, and they're disheartened, and they go back home and they say, forget it. That's what I would like to see come out of this, is a new attitude, a new training, and a new way at the parish level to be warm and welcoming, not overlooking, problems or sin, but to say, come on in, we're with you. And as the Pope says, we're going to accompany you through this. And somebody's going to explain it to you. And here's a cup of coffee, and here's some Kleenex. And, I think that's as important as 45 days or this form or that form or all this legal stuff. That's what I hope comes out of this.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I was talking with someone yesterday, the day before, who was saying, why is this such a big deal? And I said, well, if you think about it, if you lose a spouse through death, God forbid, you get flowers, you get meals, you get visits, you get all kinds of people calling on you, you get a ceremony. You get a lot of attention, consolation, compassion, assistance. And
don't forget the insurance check. You get a nice fat insurance check.
That's right. And you get none of that when you lose a spouse to divorce. It's just largely absent. I mean, you may have some family or friends who kind of check in on you, but it's a very lonely experience. And you definitely do not get a check, that's for sure. Yeah. You have to work harder for your income. And it's just so important to really kind of look at people who are divorced and really let your heart go out to them, because they're struggling and they're doing it largely on their own with no assistance. And you and I both know that pain. That's barely livable. It's really a devastating experience. So yes, I totally agree. We need, and I do hope that that's what comes out of this, is mercifulness and a second look at who's sitting next to you in the pew. Wow. It's not someone to be shunned. It's someone to be welcomed and helped.
Over the years when I made mistakes, I was able to run to my father many times and ask for his counsel. And he knew I had screwed up. And he wasn't going to let me off the hook, but he let me come in and sit down and talk with him. And he poured me a cold beer, and he put his arm around me, and he said, let's talk about this. I needed that so badly, and I knew I could always go there. And I wasn't looking for somebody to say, oh, don't worry, because he'd say, boy, you made a big mistake there, honey. What the heck were you thinking? But there was no deep shame attached to it. It was like, okay, how are we going to move forward now to do the right thing? I'm with you. I'm here for you. And that's the kind of love we need to show to everybody in the parish.
Yes. Yeah, no matter what their situation is.
Right.
We happen to be focused on the divorce because, that's what we do. But there are plenty of people in the parish who want to be welcomed, who sit in the back of the church, don't say anything to anyone, leave before the final blessing probably because they want to get out before everybody, before the stampede. So yes, those are definitely the people we need to welcome. And kind of running out of time, which is sad. But I just wanted to mention a couple of the other things that did happen. And since we're talking about good things, that may come out of this, the Pope has designated that local personnel from a deanery or lay people from the parishes, the surrounding parishes, can form a committee to assist the bishop in, reviewing cases, and possibly they might, or he recommends publishing, each diocese having their own booklet that they can give to, people going through the annulment process that's plain, plain English, and to help them understand. I think that's a great thing, because the more people understand, the more compassionate and merciful they will be. And the more involved people are from the deanery or parishes, just the better for the bishop. So I think that was a really good thing.
I do too. He wasn't as specific that, but he certainly included the fact that, okay, everybody, it's time to roll up your sleeves and begin to put systems in place for this mercy to happen. And I would love to see bishops all around the country write beautiful letters affirming that the church is upholding the teachings of marriage, but we're here for you as well if you're separated or divorced, and have that read at every Mass on a given Sunday from the pulpit. They do that now on certain issues like the child abuse scandal and other things in a diocese. Well, wouldn't that be great if a certain Sunday coming up soon, that at every Mass around the world, bishops were reaching out to the people in the pews and saying, "Fear not, we are with you."
That would be a breath of fresh air. I mean, it really would. There was one time that I was sitting in, Mass, and someone got up to the pulpit after Mass, before the final blessing, to make a few announcements, and they were asking for help for a specific group. And I really don't remember what the specific group was, but they were saying, these people come to Mass and they're not feeling welcome, and why don't you extend a hand to welcome? And I'm like, hey, we should be doing that for divorced Catholics too, because wow, do they need that? It's very important.
Yeah, and that is a good point. I think there are many people in the pews who do want to help in any way they can. They're not aware. I remember one time, same thing after Mass, they talked about a poor family, and he needed a car for the family and the 6 kids. At that one Mass, I am not exaggerating, $40,000 came out of that one Mass.
Wow, that's fantastic.
We have a well-to-do parish, but the people are willing to help, but they just don't know how. And I think the bishops need to call us to action, and I think a lot of people will stand up and respond.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a great point. Well, we're kind of running out of time, so I just wanted to point out a few things. I'm not really great at Google Hangouts yet, so I know that I could probably put this text on the screen, but I don't know how. So I'm going to tell you. For anybody watching, if you would like accurate information on what the Pope thinks, says, and does, you can go to news.va/en, which is the English version of the site. So if you go there, you can see on an almost up to the moment basis what he's really doing, what he's really saying. And oftentimes, when this announcement came out, I was able to jump on some live feed from St. Peter's Square. So it's really great information, and the thing is, you can trust it. And also, on my website, I have a free download of a booklet called The Everyday Catholic's Guide to the Annulment Process. It's super brief. It's not meant to be super comprehensive. What it does is just let you know kind of what the terms are, what to expect from the process once you speak to your priest and decide you're going to file, and other things like that. It's just kind of a helpful little guide. So please feel free to download that and use it and spread it around. Rose, can you tell everybody where they can reach you, where they, other resources that you have as well?
Well, thanks, Lisa. My website is rosesweet.com. I love how we grabbed our names for our website. And but there's a lot of other free downloads and resources as well on Catholics with an S, catholicsdivorce.com. And the book that I loved writing and that I have available is How to Understand and Petition for Your Decree of Nullity. And, you know, I'm not a canon lawyer, but I play one on TV. No, I'm just teasing. But working in the process as a lay advocate in tribunals all around the country, and going through the process myself, you and I both can bring a bird's eye view of what's going on. It's easy to read, easy to understand. So between Lisa and I, we have lots of good help, don't we?
Absolutely. And, you know, we offer these free resources because we need your help as well. You know, we were talking earlier about sharing that gift you have, that ability to commiserate or understand what someone's going through. Please use our free resources as much as possible and help those that you know are in need. It's so very important. I don't know if anyone is going to be in the Philadelphia area during next week when the World Meeting of Families is going on, but both Rose and I will be there. I will only be there Thursday, though. Rose, when will you be there?
I'll be there Tuesday through Saturday.
And when is your workshop? Are you giving it more than once?
No, I'm speaking on Thursday afternoon, and the topic of my talk is I Am With You, Struggling with Divorce. So I'm really looking forward to, maybe you and I can do something together while we're there. That would be fun too.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be very exciting. My family and I are going to, even though I will be the only one there during the week, we're going to stay for the Festival of Families on Saturday, which I'm really excited about. It's going to be a lot of fun. So do you have any parting comments?
I guess I just want to thank you, and I'm thrilled that you and I working together can be the place where the average person can come and find out what's going on in a way they can understand. I know you and I both have a heart for people, and it's genuine, and we're just here to help. And hopefully we'll be here to help more in the future. And
Yes.
I thank you for this webinar. This is great.
Oh, my pleasure. And, you know, two heads are always better than one. So I think that we're definitely on the same page. And I think going forward, there's just plenty more good things to come. So I really appreciate you, you know, with the 3-hour difference, time difference being available. And I'm just looking forward to doing other things. So thank you very much, Rose, for being here.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right, so that's about it. You will be able to find this recording on YouTube or in articles that we post or whatever. But thank you, if you've been watching this, for joining us, and God bless you.